General stood at the observation deck of his flagship, watching Earth grow larger in the planet looked like every other world his people had conquered. Blue oceans, green land, white clouds, nothing special, nothing that should cause concern. He had taken 17 worlds in his long career, and this one would be number 18. The Empire had been conquering planets for over 1,000 years. They were good at it. Himself stood 9 feet tall, his body covered in an exoskeleton as hard as steel and black as night. He had 4 powerful arms, each one strong enough to crush rock. His people were born warriors, shaped by millions of years of evolution on a harsh world with heavy gravity. Earth, by contrast, was soft. The gravity was weak. The dominant species was fragile. The intelligence reports told him everything he needed to know about humans. They were small, barely reaching his chest. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom. Their bodies broke easily. They lived short lives. They were clever, yes, but cleverness only went so far when faced with the might of the war machine. "Begin landing procedures," ordered. His voice was deep and cold. "Standard formation. I want shock troops on the ground within the hour." "General," his second-in-command said, "the humans have sent a message. They wish to talk." His mandibles clicked in amusement. They always wanted to talk. Every species did at first. They would beg and plead and offer tribute, hopping to avoid the inevitable. It never worked. The Dominion did not negotiate. The Dominion conquered. "Tell them we will meet," he said. "It will be entertaining to see what they offer before we take everything." The landing craft descended through Earth's atmosphere, carrying and his elite guard. They touched down outside a human city called Geneva. It was a pleasant enough place, with old stone buildings and mountains in the distance. Found it almost pretty, in a weak and gentle way. A small group of humans waited for him near the landing zone. They wore dark clothes and carried no weapons. When approached, towering over them like a giant among children, they did not run. They did not cower. They simply waited. One of them stepped forward. She was a female, according to his translator, with dark hair and calm eyes. She extended one of her small hands in greeting. "General," she said, "I am Doctor. I represent the United Earth Council. We welcome you to our world." Welcome, as if this were a social visit. His mandibles clicked again. "I am not here for welcome," he said. "I am here to deliver terms." "Of course," Doctor said. She did not seem afraid. "Perhaps we could discuss those terms over dinner. We have prepared a meeting space where we can speak comfortably." Dinner? These creatures wanted to serve him food while he explained how he would enslave their world. The thought was so strange that almost laughed, but he was curious. He wanted to understand these humans before he crushed them. "Very well," he said, "lead the way." They walked through the human city, noticed how the people watched him. Some were afraid, yes. Their hearts beat faster and he could smell the fear on them, but others watched with different expressions. Curiosity, calculation, even in a few cases something that looked like confidence. Strange, very strange. The meeting space was a large building made of glass and stone. Inside, there was a long table covered with food. Did not eat human food, but he took a seat at the head of the table anyway. His guards stood behind him, weapons ready. Doctor sat across from him. Other humans filled the remaining seats. Scientists, politicians, military officers. They all watched him with those calm, unreadable faces. "Let us begin," said. "The Dominion claims this world. You will surrender immediately. Your people will provide labor for our mining operations. Your resources will feed our war machine. Those who resist will be destroyed." He expected panic. He expected tears. He expected desperate attempts at bargaining. Instead, Doctor nodded slowly. "I see. And what if we refuse?" "Then we will burn your cities from orbit. We will hunt down every last human and put them in chains. There is no scenario in which you win, Doctor. Accept this truth now, and the transition will be less painful." The human woman looked at her colleagues. Something passed between them, some silent communication that could not read. Then she turned back to him. "We appreciate your honesty," she said, "and we would like to offer the same. Before you make any final decisions, there is something you should understand about humanity." "What is there to understand?" asked. "You are weak, you are fragile, you have nothing that can stand against us." Doctor smiled. It was a small smile, but something about it made uneasy. "That is what most species think when they first meet us. We look soft, we seem helpless. Your reports probably told you that we break easily." "They did," agreed. "Your reports were accurate," she said. "We were fragile, we did break easily. Evolution did not give us armor or claws or venom. We had to survive with our minds alone." She paused. "But here is what your reports did not tell you, General. 30 years ago, we detected your signals at the edge of our solar system. We knew you were coming, and we decided that being fragile was no longer acceptable." Felt something cold move through him. He did not understand what she meant, but the confidence in her voice was troubling. "What are you saying?" he asked. Doctor stood up. "I am saying that we fixed the problem. We looked at our weak bodies and we made them strong. We looked at our short lives and we made them longer. We looked at our slow minds and we made them faster." She walked toward the door. "Perhaps it is time for a demonstration." She opened the door and spoke to someone outside. Guards raised their weapons, but she held up a hand. "There is no need for that," she said. "We are simply going to show you something. After that, you can make your decision." Wanted to refuse. He wanted to order his guards to open fire and end this foolishness. But curiosity held him back. What could these soft creatures possibly show him that would change anything? "Very well," he said, "show me." They walked outside into the cool evening air. A transport vehicle was arriving. Watched it land, his 4 arms folded across his massive chest. Whatever trick the humans were planning, it would not work. Nothing could stand against the nothing. The transport door opened and a single human stepped out, studied him with growing confusion. The man was average in every way. Average height, average build. He wore simple clothing with no armor and carried no weapons. He looked exactly like every other human had seen. But there was something in his eyes, a calm certainty that seemed out of place on such a fragile creature. He walked toward them without fear, without hurry, as if he were taking a morning stroll through a garden. "General," Doctor said, "this is Staff Sergeant Cole. He would like to offer you a demonstration of human capability." Guards raised their plasma rifles, but the human ignored them completely. He walked past them as if they were not there, his attention fixed on something at the edge of the compound. There was a boulder there, a massive piece of granite placed as decoration by some landscaper years ago. Estimated its weight at perhaps 2 tons. Even a would struggle to lift such a stone. It would take 3 or 4 of his soldiers working together to move it. Staff Sergeant Cole walked up to the boulder. He looked at it for a moment as if considering something. Then he reached down with one hand. His fingers found purchase on the rough surface of the stone, and he lifted it. Watched in stunned silence as the human raised a 2-ton boulder with one arm. He did not strain. He did not struggle. He did not even seem to put much effort into it. He simply lifted the massive stone as easily as a normal human might pick up a book, held it at shoulder height, and turned to face with an expression of mild boredom. For the first time in his long career, General felt fear. His 4 arms went slack. His translator glitched, unable to process the strangled sounds coming from his throat. His mind tried to make sense of what he was seeing, but it could not. This was impossible. This violated everything he knew about physics, about biology, about the natural order of the universe. "Your intelligence reports were accurate," Doctor said, stepping forward. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "We are fragile. We break easily. We evolved on a world that required us to be clever rather than strong." She paused, letting the words sink in. What your reports failed to mention is that we got tired of being clever, so we fixed the fragility problem. Staff Sergeant Cole set the boulder down with a soft thud that should have been a thunderous crash. He flexed his fingers, looking at his own hand as if checking for damage. There was none. Hal finally managed to say, "How is this possible?" 30 years, Doctor said. We had 30 years to prepare for your arrival. That is a long time for a species as creative as humanity. We used every moment of it. She gestured toward Staff Sergeant Cole. Genetic engineering, cybernetic enhancement, biological modification. We redesigned the human body from the ground up. We kept what worked and fixed what did not. This is one soldier, said, trying to regain his composure. One enhanced human. It means nothing against the might of the Dominion fleet. Doctor smiled again, that same unsettling smile. Of course, one soldier would mean nothing. That is why we made more. She lifted her hand and made a signal. Behind her, more transport vehicles were arriving. Watched as their doors opened, one after another, and more humans stepped out. They looked normal, average height, average build. They wore simple clothes and carried no visible weapons. They moved like ordinary humans, talking and laughing among themselves. One of them tripped on a stone and caught herself easily. Another was drinking from a water container. But's tactical mind was already noticing things, little details that made his fear grow stronger with each passing moment. One of the humans leaned against a steel railing while waiting. The railing bent under her casual touch like soft metal. She did not notice. Another human dropped a coffee cup. Before it could hit the ground, he moved 50 meters in the blink of an eye and caught it. Then he walked back to his original position as if nothing had happened. A third human sneezed. The force of the sneeze cracked the concrete beneath her feet. These were not soldiers in battle. These were enhanced humans just existing. The power they displayed was not effort. It was baseline. It was normal for them now. We call it Project Prometheus, Doctor said. Named after a figure from our mythology who stole fire from the gods to give to humanity. It seemed appropriate. How many? Asked. His voice was barely a whisper. How many of you have been changed? Not everyone chose to undergo the enhancement. The process is voluntary, but we have approximately 10,000 enhanced soldiers ready for active duty. More are completing the program every month. 10,000. 10,000 beings who could lift boulders with one hand, who could move faster than the eye could follow, who could crack concrete with a sneeze. Thought about his invasion force. 20,000 warriors, trained and equipped with the best weapons the Dominion could provide. It had seemed overwhelming when he planned the attack. Now it seemed hopelessly small. The enhancements go beyond physical strength, Doctor continued. Our enhanced soldiers can survive hard vacuum for extended periods. They can process information at speeds that match our fastest computers. Their reaction times are measured in microseconds. They do not need to sleep. They heal from almost any wound. Staff Sergeant Cole walked over to join the conversation. Up close, could see that his eyes were slightly different from normal human eyes. There was a faint glow behind the pupils, like light reflecting from internal machinery. You should also know, the soldier said, that I can hear your heartbeat right now. I can tell exactly how afraid you are, and I want you to understand something, General. He stepped closer until he was looking up into his eyes. Despite the difference in height, it did not feel like was the larger one. We did not want this, Staff Sergeant Cole said. Humans do not enjoy war. We do not dream of conquest. We would have been happy to live on our little world and never bother anyone. But when we saw your ships coming, we knew we had no choice. We had to become something more than we were. We had to become something that could survive. And now, asked. Now we are ready. Whatever you choose to do next, General, we will be ready for it. Doctor stepped forward again. The Dominion has a choice, she said. You can leave Earth's system and report to your empire that this world is not worth the cost. You can recommend that the Dominion seek diplomatic relations with humanity, trade, cultural exchange, perhaps even alliance. She paused. Or you can fire on our cities and discover what happens when you make us angry. Behind her, the enhanced soldiers had stopped their casual conversations. They stood in perfect stillness, watching with those strange glowing eyes, waiting. Looked at them. He looked at Staff Sergeant Cole. He looked at the boulder that still lay where it had been set down, completely undamaged despite being lifted like a toy. He thought about his fleet in orbit, his soldiers ready to descend, his weapons primed and waiting. And he thought about what would happen if he gave the order to attack, his warriors dropping from the sky, expecting an easy victory, enhanced humans meeting them at every turn, plasma bolts bouncing off skin that was stronger than armor, soldiers being torn apart by hands that could crush steel. It would be a massacre, but not the kind he had planned. General had built his career on one simple skill, knowing when a battle could not be won. He had never retreated before. He had never backed down from any challenge. But he had also never faced anything like this. He looked at Doctor. She was still smiling that calm, confident smile. "Very well," he said slowly. Perhaps we should talk more about this alliance you mentioned." The next 6 months changed everything. General ordered his fleet to withdraw from Earth orbit, a command that stunned every soldier under his command. In 1,000 years of history, no invasion force had ever turned back. No general had ever chosen retreat over glory. But was not retreating from glory. He was retreating from annihilation. He spent those 6 months learning about humanity. He watched them work, studied their culture, observed their enhanced soldiers in training. What he saw changed his understanding of what was possible. The Dominion had conquered species with natural armor that could stop plasma fire. They had defeated enemies with venomous fangs that could kill with a single bite. They had broken worlds defended by hive mind coordination and instant communication. But they had never encountered a species that had simply decided to become stronger and then engineered the solution. The enhanced humans were unlike anything in the galaxy. They combined the creativity and adaptability of baseline humans with bodies that could crush titanium. They could survive in hard vacuum for hours. They could process information at computational speeds. They healed from wounds that would kill any other species. But the truly terrifying thing was not their power. It was how they used it. Watched an enhanced soldier named Lieutenant Sarah during a training exercise. She was testing the limits of her new body, pushing herself to see what she could do. In one afternoon, she lifted a tank over her head, ran 100 miles without stopping, and punched through a wall of reinforced concrete. When she was done, she sat down with her friends and ate lunch. She laughed at jokes. She complained about the weather. She talked about a book she was reading. She was still human. That was what made it so frightening. The enhanced soldiers had not become cold machines or emotionless weapons. They were still people, with hopes and fears and dreams. They still fell in love, still worried about their families, still got excited about small pleasures. They had kept everything that made humans creative and adaptable and dangerous. They had simply added the power to back it up. The Treaty of Geneva was signed on a bright spring morning, represented the Dominion. Doctor represented Earth. Staff Sergeant Cole stood behind her as an honor guard, along with 100 other enhanced soldiers. The terms were fair. Earth would remain independent. Humanity would trade resources and technology with the Dominion. Cultural exchange programs would be established. Neither side would engage in hostile action against the other. It was the first treaty the Dominion had ever signed with a conquered world. Except, reminded himself, Earth had never been conquered. It had simply been visited. "You realize," said to Doctor after the signing ceremony, "that this will not be accepted easily. The High Council will question my judgment. Many will call me a coward." "And what will you tell them?" she asked. Looked out the window at the human city below. Children were playing in a park. Old people were sitting on benches enjoying the sun. It looked so peaceful, so harmless. "I will tell them the truth," he said, "that we found a species that was weak and made itself strong, that we found a prey animal that became a predator, that we found the one world in the galaxy that should never be touched." He paused. "I will tell them to learn from humanity, not to fight them." Doctor nodded. "That is wise of you, General." "I have one question," said. "If we had attacked, if I had given the order to fire on your cities, what would have happened?" Doctor was quiet for a moment. "We would have stopped you," she said simply. "Your ships would have burned, your soldiers would have died, and then we would have taken the fight to the Dominion itself. We would have shown the galaxy what happens when you threaten Earth." She looked at him with those calm, steady eyes. "It is better for everyone that you chose peace." Believed her. Word spread quickly through the galaxy. Other species heard about what had happened at Earth. Conquered worlds whispered the story in secret. Slave laborers passed it from one to another in the dark. A species had stood against the Dominion and won, not through superior numbers, not through ancient weapons, through simple, stubborn refusal to be what nature had made them. The humans had looked at themselves and seen weakness, so they had become strong. It was a message that resonated with every slave, every conquered population, every species that had been told they were inferior and had believed it. If the humans could do it, perhaps others could too. Within a year the first rebellions began, small at first, easily crushed, but they kept coming. More and more species started asking questions. Why do we accept this? Why do we bow? Why do we not fight? The Dominion sent emissaries to Earth, demanding that humanity stop inspiring dissent. Doctor received them politely and listened to their complaints. "We are not telling anyone to rebel," she said. "We are simply existing. If our existence gives others hope, that is not something we can control." "You must stop," the emissary demanded. "The Dominion will not tolerate this disruption." Staff Sergeant Cole stepped forward. He was still wearing his simple clothes. He still looked like an ordinary man. But the emissary stepped back anyway, fear flickering in his eyes. "The Dominion," Cole said quietly, "will tolerate whatever it has to tolerate. You came here to conquer us, you failed. Now you come here to threaten us, you will fail at that too." He smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "Go home. Tell your masters that Earth is not interested in their demands. Tell them that if they want to try again, they are welcome to come. We will be waiting." The emissary left without another word. Years passed. The rebellions grew stronger. Species that had been conquered for centuries started to fight back. Some of them reached out to Earth for help. Humanity responded carefully, sending advisors and technology but not soldiers. "We will not build an empire of our own," Doctor explained to her colleagues. "That would make us no better than the Dominion. We will help those who ask for help. We will defend those who cannot defend themselves. But we will not conquer. We will not rule." It was a philosophy that puzzled the galaxy. Power was meant to be used. Strength was meant to dominate. But humanity refused to follow that pattern. They were strong enough to crush the Dominion. Everyone knew that now. But they chose not to. They chose to help others become strong instead. General watched it all from a distance. He had retired from active service after the Geneva incident. No one trusted his judgment anymore. He was the general who had retreated from a world of soft, small creatures. But as the years went by and the Dominion's power crumbled, found himself thinking that perhaps he was the only general who had seen clearly. He had recognized an unwinnable battle and chosen survival. He had given his people time to adapt, to learn, to change. Whether they would use that time wisely was another question, but at least they had the chance. On the 10th anniversary of the Treaty of Geneva, Earth hosted a celebration. Species from across the galaxy attended. Former slaves stood beside former masters. Old enemies shared food and drink. It was chaotic and messy and beautiful. Doctor gave a speech. She was older now, her hair streaked with gray, but her eyes were still calm and steady. 10 years ago, she said, we showed the galaxy that the weak can become strong, that fragile creatures can find ways to survive, that evolution is not the only force that shapes what we are. She looked out at the crowd of diverse species, all watching with hope in their eyes. Today I want to show you something else. Strength is not just about power. It is about what you do with that power. It is about choosing to help instead of harm. It is about building instead of destroying. She paused, letting the words settle. Humanity was once a small species on a small world, afraid of what might come from the stars. Now we stand as equals among the nations of the galaxy. We did not achieve this by becoming conquerors ourselves. We achieved it by becoming something better, she smiled. And that is a path open to everyone. The crowd cheered. Beings from 100 different worlds raised their voices together. It was a sound unlike anything the galaxy had heard before. Stood at the back of the gathering, watching. He had been invited as a gesture of respect, and he had accepted, though he still was not sure why. Staff Sergeant Cole found him there, standing alone. General, the human said, I was not sure you would come. Neither was I, admitted, but I wanted to see, I wanted to understand. And do you understand, I mean? Thought about it. He thought about the day he had watched a human lift a boulder one-handed. He thought about the fear he had felt, the certainty that his world was about to change forever. Perhaps, he said slowly, perhaps I am beginning to. Staff Sergeant Cole nodded. That is all any of us can do, begin to understand, and then try to be better than we were. He walked away, leaving alone with his thoughts. The celebration continued around him. Laughter and music and the sound of many species coming together in hope. Stayed until the end. And when he finally left Earth, returning to a dominion that no longer felt like home, he carried a new word with him. A word that had spread throughout the galaxy like fire, carried by slaves and rebels and all the species that had once believed they could never be more than they were. A word that meant hope and defiance, and the simple, stubborn refusal to accept weakness as destiny. Human. The end.